And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Sean here. I'm here with my friend Nick. We just got done seeing Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, the all-new Sylvester Stallone director's cut.
Ultimate
director's cut of Rocky 4. This is quite the experience. We're both huge Rocky fans.
True.
We got the big Rocky poster right there. It's just the perfect setup for the Rocky after the movie video. So yeah, this was an interesting experience because it's gonna be on digital tomorrow. So this is just a one night only Fathom event thing.
Yep.
And I tell you what, these Fathom event screenings, they were like sold out like everywhere. This is when I got the tickets ahead of time, but
hugely popular.
Hugely popular. This is a pretty packed theater we were in. It was interesting because the first 30 minutes isn't the movie. It's like it was like this live presentation with Sylvester Stallone talking about his director's cut of this film. Now, when it comes to the Rocky series, it's kind of tough to choose an all-time favorite. Like, the original's the original. Rocky 2 is kind of a pretty much pitch-perfect follow-up to that. Rocky 3 is where the series starts to change into a very drastically different thing, but I absolutely love Rocky 3. It might even be my favorite.
I can't go that far, but yeah, it's good.
Rocky 4 is the original cut is the most ridiculous movie in the series, but it's probably the most entertaining. Like, it is
by far.
It's just pure action entertaining, like an adrenaline rush all the way through. It is 80s excess. It is a time capsule of 1984 or 1985. I think it was 85 when it came out. But that movie is a pure time capsule of that era. Then you had Rocky 5, which isn't very good, which Stallone even said when he was doing the live presentation. Yeah, 5's no good, so that was kind of funny. Then Rocky Balboa, which I really loved as well. Then you had the 2 Creed films. I love the Rocky franchise, and you love the Rocky franchise too. But with this version, the new director's cut, Stallone basically kind of took a film that was kind of one of the most goofy. It was the most goofy entry in the series
by far.
Kind of made it feel more in tone with the original 3 films. Like, there's still some goofy kind of moments, but it's definitely a lot more serious film than what was originally presented.
Compared to the original 4, absolutely.
Yeah, like
way more dramatic, by far.
Way more dramatic. For instance, there's a lot of changes to this cut of the film. Like, the opening of it's totally different than the excessive United States versus Russia boxing glove explosions.
Yeah, you get a little Rocky 3 to start up the party. So.
Right. Well, I mean, the last one did kind of start out with Rocky 3, but like it was just kind of them like doing their little sparring match. This time it starts out a little bit different. Like, there's that scene in Rocky 3 where Rocky looks at the statue and he just chucks his helmet in, and that's when he kind of meets Apollo, because it's kind of setting the stage for who Apollo is and their relationship and why that's important and why Rocky feels the need to go out and get his basically revenge for what happened with Ivan Drago.
Yep.
But this film also takes, like, it's a lot longer. You're seeing a lot different takes than you did before. Scenes that I've never seen before.
Right.
For instance, like the very opening of the movie, you have Apollo playing with his dogs, which is in the original cut. Then you have a scene where he's immediately talking to Rocky at his house, and they cut out stuff like the robot entirely. Sylvester Stallone made sure that, to be very clear, there ain't going to be no robot in this version. Although I kind of love that for how hokey it is in the original.
Yeah. They did a pre-interview with Stallone, and he just flat out said, "No robot. We're not doing it."
No robot. But so there's a lot more drama in this thing. A lot more scenes with Adrian. A lot more scenes with Apollo's trainer. And there's actually some scenes, too, about that for moments in the original cut, which kind of were brushed over. Like, why doesn't Rocky have any sparring partners? They make sure to establish that he's not going to get any when he goes to Russia.
Yeah.
You have the scene with him talking to the boxing committee, which seems like kind of an important scene to really kind of set the stage for it. And you really feel the build-up more to the Apollo versus Drago fight. And the fight itself is a little bit different, too.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original cut, it's very one-sided, and Drago is just completely invulnerable. This version has Apollo fighting back a lot more. He gets a lot more hits in, and you really kind of feel the impact of his punches. Drago himself, too, is also quite different in this version a bit.
Absolutely.
Like he's pretty much silent in the original version entirely. They cut out like all his dialogue. But here, he says a lot more, and you kind of feel things a bit differently. Even the ending's kind of a little bit different. For instance, they cut out the scene with the son watching at home, but instead just kind of Rocky ending the Cold War, mind you. Like a true hero. So what did you think of this particular version compared to the original?
I thought it was great. It had great elements to it. It really brought out some of the more backstory, the things you wanted to know for more plot purposes. So really, if you're looking for a good contextual film for a director's cut, it was really good. So highly recommend. Definitely worth your time to watch. good thing to see in the big screen. But
Oh,
obviously
it was
now,
fun times.
obviously now it's going to be digital. So, I mean, definitely worth your watch though. If you're any kind of Rocky fan, worth checking out.
Right, it is fascinating to see. It makes me wonder if there's going to be any other director's cuts for any of the other Rockies films. I feel like this one's the one where...
Well, there might not be, but what we did get potentially promised was a TV series for Rocky. So
Yeah.
we will see how that transitions.
Yeah, Stallone definitely promised that at the beginning of like this whole panel thing. It was him and the guy from Turner Classic Movies, just kind of talking about the Rocky franchise. Stallone went into how poor he was and how much money he was making on it. He just went the distance on this thing.
Yeah.
So you had that going in there. When it comes to this cut versus the original theatrical cut, it's kind of like, what are you in the mood for? Do you want something that's more in tone with the first 3 films in the series, where it's like a good blend of drama and a little bit more serious? Then you should watch the director's cut. But if you want something that's a pure time capsule of the 1980s, that's just overall batshit insane ridiculous, I recommend the original theatrical cut. Like, both cuts have their strengths and weaknesses, because I that's one of the things I love about Rocky 4 is it's just batshit crazy entertainment. It's pure 80s excess. And this film definitely has some of that in there. The training montages, thankfully, are pretty much untouched for the most part.
As they should be.
I was getting a little nervous because with all the changes, I'm like, oh, don't touch your training montage. Don't get rid of No Easy Way Out. Don't.
No, they didn't. They
right, and they maybe added a few extra shots in that. There's some tweaks with the fights being a little bit more visceral and violent.
Sure.
But I think those changes definitely help the film. Like, there's a lot more drama with Adrian in that too. You get to see, which actually makes you feel more. The biggest change I feel that helps the movie was the funeral scene for Apollo Creed, because in the original version he's just like, "You're the best, Apollo," and then he just kind of puts the title on here. You actually see
there's a lot more build up to it. There's a lot more detail to it, and just as far as really giving Apollo screen time, they gave Apollo a ton more screen time.
Right, there's a lot more
than the past.
Right, there's a lot more Apollo Creed scenes, and even like in the panel beforehand, Stallone mentions how he kind of regrets killing Apollo Creed, which it's kind of a thing, because Apollo, then you wouldn't have the Creed movies, which in a way I do have some issues with the way the Creed movies portray Apollo himself and just kind of like change him a bit as a character in order for those films to happen. So I'd be kind of interested in the alternate timeline where Apollo Creed doesn't die, and what that means for the Rocky series in general. Like, what direction would it have gone in? But all things considered, if you're a fan of Rocky 4, I see no reason not to check this thing out, if only to see a different cut of the film. I've noticed this, we've kind of been doing this with a lot more movies recently, ever since the release of, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Earlier this year, we had like a drastically different cut of the movie. Now, maybe this is going to be a trend going forward. We're seeing older director's cuts for older films, kind of like redone like Rocky 4 was. Maybe this is a trend, in which case I'm all for it, because there's some films where it feels like some bits are kind of missing, and you hear directors time and time again say, oh, we originally shot this, but I want to see those scenes kind of integrated in different movies. Maybe we'll get some more different director's cuts for other films. So this was a fascinating watch. It's still, the second half is still like pretty much all that you know from Rocky 4 with a few slight tweaks. The first half is definitely where it drastically differs a bit in terms of tone, and this is a much more grim, serious cut as opposed to the other one, which is more 80s excess and just quick paced, like super fast through.
Absolutely.
It's a more immersive experience, so it depends on what you're looking for. You're going to get it, like whether you like the theatrical or this cut. I think it should satisfy both, but maybe some people will like this cut more than the original cut, and I can definitely see that. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Have anything else you want to add to it?
I got nothing else to add.
All right, so there you go. Rocky fans, check this thing out. I love the Rocky series. I don't know what they're going to do next with it. I guess they're doing Creed 3, but we'll see. Rocky is one of the best franchises of all time. It's the most consistently good movie series. Aside from 5, all of them are pretty good. So, all right, well, thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the video. Go check out Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, which is now on digital, I believe, at the time we're recording this.
Yes,
so
it will be.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, peace.